This video will further your understanding of the differences between organizing and activating effects. We'll go through and remind ourselves of what activating effects were, and then give you an example of one type of activating effects, and you'll watch another video for another example of an activating effect. So just to remind us of what these activating effects are, and if you've forgotten, remind yourself of what organizing effects are with the previous videos. So an activating effect occurs at any time during life, not during one of those sensitive periods, and it's a temporary response of the body. So the activating effects that we're going to discuss today are how hormones contribute to sexual behavior. And then you'll watch a second video where it discusses how activating effects contribute to women's menstrual cycles. So first we're going to go over how it contributes to sexual behavior. So how do hormones alter sexual behavior? What do you think hormones are going to have an effect on that would alter our sexual behavior? The first one is going to be the sensitivity of the genitals, and this can occur within 15 minutes. So as you start to become intimate, within 15 minutes, hormones are going to be released from the brain and go down and alter the sensitivity of those genitalia. They also alter the activity of the brain in several different areas. So the hormones aren't causing the behaviors, they're causing changes in the brain that then alter these behaviors. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail of each of these, both how hormones alter the sensitivity of the genitalia and how they alter the activity in various brain regions on the next few slides. So the first one is how sex hormones can activate sexual behavior by enhancing sensations. So a lot of this research was done in rats, but we know that some of it applies to humans. So what hormone in females do you think is going to enhance the sensitivity of a female genitalia? Estrogens. So estrogens are going to increase the sensitivity of the pudendal nerve, which is going to transmit stimulation from the vagina and the cervix to the brain. What hormone do you think is going to be responsible for increasing the sensitivity in males? Testosterone. So testosterone increases the release of nitric oxide, which increases blood flow to the penis, causing an erection. I always thought that those little blue pills, Viagra, worked in this way. I think someone had told me back when I was in graduate school that that's how Viagra worked. Turns out it doesn't. Viagra does not cause nitric oxide to be released. It increases blood flow to the penis in a different way. So now we're going to talk about how sex hormones also increase responses of certain areas of the hypothalamus. So this is how sex hormones are changing the pattern of activity in the brain, which then also alters our behaviors. So again, what hormones do you think we're talking about here? Testosterone and estrogen, and probably not as intuitive what neurotransmitter, but basically what happens is testosterone and estradiol, which remember is a type of estrogen, is going to trigger the release of dopamine. We haven't talked a whole lot about dopamine, but in the coming weeks, we will definitely start talking about dopamine more and more. So this testosterone and estradiol triggering the release of dopamine is going to facilitate the erection of the penis. And then there's a feedback loop. Okay, so then that causes more hormonal release, which causes more release of dopamine, and this higher concentration of dopamine eventually leads to orgasm. So yes, here I've just broken down sexual behavior in terms of hormones and neurotransmitters and taken away all of the romance out of it. So just to kind of relate it to certain drugs and how certain drugs can have an effect on our sexual behavior is serotonin is going to block dopamine release. And by blocking that dopamine release, it decreases sexual activity. So certain types of drugs, like antidepressants, that increase levels of serotonin ultimately can decrease our sexual drive. Now, your book goes in and talks specifically about the the receptors that are involved in this first step versus the second step. I'm not going to hold you responsible for knowing those differences, just understanding that the reason that these are slightly different responses is because the higher concentrations of dopamine are going to be acting at different receptors. And now please download the handout for menstrual cycles before watching the next video.